about the BaZi, which means 8 images, literally, sometimes called 4 pillars, which, if you like, is sometimes misleadingly called a Chinese horoscope. I say misleadingly because it would tend to make you think of fairgrounds and tall, dark strangers, to call it a Chinese horoscope. It can reveal tall, dark strangers, but it is also perhaps the most powerful healing model that I'm aware of. So BaZi, 4 pillars, personal Feng Shui based on date of birth, whatever the hell you want to call it. No medieval Feng Shui master would have thought about surveying a palace or a tomb or a home without doing BaZis for the people within the buildings, within the graves. And my purpose today is to, partly because I teach this, to suggest to you that to know BaZi may bring a whole dimension to our understanding of Feng Shui and the way that we practice it. The heart of Feng Shui, from my standpoint, is cycles. That is the cycle of space and the cycle of time. And what we do, if we talk about, sneaking yourself here, if we talk in terms of the helpful friends area, or the relationship area, or the money area, we tend to lose sight of the cycles from which these things have come. And one of the points I want to make to you is the Chinese did not make these things up, they observed them. They're not options, they're really out there. From a BaZi, we can learn a lot about an individual. So we have an example of that over here. So, for instance, if you're interested in how this impacts on Feng Shui practice, an example was a lady that I was dealing with this week. Now, she was born in 1952, which makes her a water dragon, and she was born on a metal dragon day, and she was born in September. Okay, and I was doing her house and her son's house. Now, her son had recently been made redundant and she was paying for both. And what she wanted was for him to be fabulously wealthy in 20 minutes' time. And for herself, she wanted to keep her man. She'd been in a relationship for 20-odd years, and she wanted him to move in and to stay. And so they're very, very different objectives. But what happened was, as so often happens with Feng Shui, is that the houses were actually exactly the same house. They were on precisely the same orientation. So his was a smart 3-level townhouse on an estate outside Warrington. And hers was a 60s box, but they were on the same orientation, so in many senses they were exactly the same. She had a prosthetic knee, which, on the level of house as metaphor, suggested something to one side, suggested the east because it's to do with movement and flexibility and so on and so forth. And she had a very strange overhang to the garage and a door that shouldn't have been where it was, which needed sorting out. But a number of things pointed to an imbalance here. Now, the most interesting BaZis are unbalanced. So if you find your BaZi is unbalanced when you get to be able to work it out, that's great. A balanced BaZi is extraordinarily hard to work with, because you go, well, this is fine, what the hell are we going to do with this? You know, if we get to them, I've got some celebrity ones here, and they're fabulously unbalanced. And what you get is people with a burning need to do something. You know, in fact, there's a particular A-minus lister I've been dealing with this week who's just busting through, who couldn't find a house. Will someone remind me that I said that a little bit later? Because I'll come back to that, just to make that point, but I want to stick with this one. This is metal. This is metal, this is metal, and we concluded from a number of signs that she was probably born in the late afternoon, which probably gave her more metal. Therefore, what could we start to say, perhaps, about what sort of house she would want to live in? Possibly. You wouldn't want to be bringing in more metal. So probably you wouldn't want to be facing northwest or west, maybe. You probably wouldn't want to have the qi coming in from the west or northwest. But she had, not only she had a prosthetic knee, but she's also had a terrible reaction to vaccination and also to acupuncture. She actually had a vaccination scar that sort of throbbed. You know how when you get really close to a client, you see real detailed stuff. You know, her vaccination scar was talking to me. You know, let me out. Too much metal. So they were on they're the same orientation, virtually the same house, but different objectives. So in the case of the sun, what I did was to use flying stars to agitate the water star. We found the 8 fate water star. We put a water feature in it, broadly, in this year safe place in southeast 2, in the 8-2 Gua, 8-2, because that was just about making money. I moved him into the southeast room for his office, because that's where the water star was. I moved him out of the office he was in, which was in the northwest? No. Anyway, it had nasty flying stars, 3s and 5s, 5s and 7s, or whatever it was. And also he was looking into a cupboard with a door behind him, the window behind him, closing himself away, all that sort of stuff. For the mother, whose BaZi this is, if I had put the water in the metal position, I would have been exacerbating all of this stuff. And you ask any master in the 8th fate, where do you put water on that orientation? He will say southeast 2 or 3. I actually put it in the east here so as to give her wood form. What she wanted was for her man to stay, and what she didn't need was more metal. Now we could also have drawn from that her being born in 1952, a Gua number which would be a 3, so she's East group, for instance. We draw from that a Gua which would be that, I think, which tells you other things about her preferences. We can tell from this that the sort of partner she's looking for, each of these have meaning derived from where they are. So there is what is called the partner palace, which is this position. This is where your true partner, husband, wife should be. And there should be a particular sort of relationship between those two. But we could tell she was looking for someone to support her, because earth supports metal. We could tell difficult relationship with father, because she was supporting him. We could tell that both she and her mother were what is possibly the most powerful of the Chinese animals, the dragon who can wiggle their nose and do magic. Anyone here who knows they're a dragon? Right, so the dragon, you tell me if I'm wrong, the dragon, you better be careful employing the dragon, because they're going to do the job they want to do whether you like it or not. Is that right? So you better make sure the job spec fits them rather than the other way around. Yeah? Dragons also have what's called the self-curse, self-clash, which means they don't get on with each other. But they can, obviously. The intelligent use of this information is to get the dragons have ego, and we have to be careful with each other. It is not to say, you're a dragon and therefore I hate you, which is a very foolish thing to do. Some of my best friends are ladies who are, I am also one of these. Some of my best friends are ladies who are earth dogs, and the water dragon and the earth dog traditionally clash, because look, water, earth, and the dog and the dragon are opposite each other on the compass. That's a classic clash, everything clashing. But I know the dogs think I go on a bit, and they know that I think they need to keep up. And we can be friends just the same. That's sensible use of this stuff. So there's an example of how to do that, how to make a difference to the Feng Shui based on the BaZi.